goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creators, where we sit down with special guests and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so that you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. Hi, I'm Simon.
And I'm Greg.
Together, we are Cinemate Films, two Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee and talking shop with others in the wedding industry. And we've teamed up with Photography Farm to bring you 6 special episodes in anticipation of Thrive Edinburgh 2025 on the 4th of March, on the 5th of March at the Yotel Imaginex. Greg, who's clicking in the background?
Today, we're talking to a repeat guest. We're talking to Emma Lawson. Hello, Emma. How are you doing?
Hi, Ems.
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
What have you been up to?
Well, it's January, so I'm just trying to finish my backlog of editing and reply to inquiries and book work and do all the things that photographers do in January. It's generally known to be booking season for whatever reason. I've done this for 12 years. It still makes no sense to me that that's when everyone wants to book weddings and spend a lot of money on weddings. But every year it's the same. It's when the majority of inquiries come in and people always say, oh, is it because people get engaged at Christmas? And I was like, well, no, it can't be, because they didn't get engaged at Christmas and then book a venue and they aren't ready to book suppliers. So I guess it's the people who got engaged the year before and maybe booked their venue and then just didn't do anything else. And then, I don't know, the January hits and they get into wedding planning mode. But I mean, inquiries got by like 300% in January. It's year on year. It's never any different. It just truly, I just find it bizarre every year.
Yeah.
Every year I'm like, I wonder if it won't happen this year, and it always happens.
Are the majority of them for 2025? Like, is it people getting to January going, oh crap, I better plan my wedding because it's coming up in 6 months, 8 months?
I've never before seen I think it's a growing trend year on year, but this has been the biggest year for people who are putting together weddings for 2025. Like usually people just did that annoying thing that Scottish people do when you say like before you say something.
And now you've highlighted it, so we're all going to watch for it now.
No, it's really bad. I was trying to think before I say things. So generally from previous years, say if you went back 3 years, people would be inquiring for the next year. So if this is 2025, people would be inquiring for 2026 or 2027, because people used to, by and large, be planning weddings like a year, 18 months in advance. Now, what I'm seeing more and more of is people putting together weddings in shorter period of time, but I haven't quite decided if that's because of me or if that's because of them. And when I say because of me, I mean, as your prices go up and you hit a higher part of the market, people don't need to save to put a wedding together. So when you're doing weddings with bigger budgets, they don't need to save their money for 2 years to buy the things they want to buy for their weddings. The more affluent weddings, or the people who are more affluent who are having weddings, are able to they can put a wedding together in 6 months if they want. They can put a wedding together in 3 months if they want, and they can put. So I don't know what it is, but I've never had so many inquiries that are for that same year. Like, for example, like I had an inquiry the other day, and it's for a wedding at a very nice castle for April, but I am not 100% sure why they don't have suppliers booked yet, other than they're busy people who haven't spent a lot of time on the wedding planning yet. But it's just crazy to me that like that's an amazing booking to get with 4 months to go, because you're say you're booking something for 5-6 grand, and like usually that money is coming in over a period of time. Like getting a short that to me is a short timescale lead. That coming in 3 months, or most of it coming in straight away, is unusual and didn't used to happen. But
Yeah.
it does happen now.
Is
But
that when you're
again, I don't know if it's because of me or if it's because of them.
Yeah, is that one of your American clientele? Because obviously they've
They
got bigger
are-
shit to worry about right now.
They are this particular couple are not American, but they are overseas. So as my business has changed, I also now have over 50% of my clients are North American.
Mm-hmm.
The other quarter would be from other places overseas, so the Emirates or Australia or Asia. And then the other part of my wedding work is either Scottish people or more likely they're coming up from England, Londoners. I actually do very few weddings that are Scottish-based people anymore.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if that's because of where my prices have gone and if that's affected my local market.
Yeah. I mean, the last wedding we shot with you, they were
local.
Scottish.
Local,
Yeah, they were local.
Yeah.
Sort of outliers
So
for
they
both
were-
of us, I guess.
They were unusual.
Yeah.
It was an unusual wedding. It was an unusual wedding booking.
Hmm.
And I don't really shoot in that part of Scotland very much either. Not because I actively don't shoot in that part of Scotland, but I've noticed that as well as my business has grown. So I used to shoot a lot in Glasgow in Ayrshire. Like that was a big part of my business every year, especially Ayrshire and like the barroom venues down there and castles down there. I like, since my prices have hit a certain level, I only really shoot in Edinburgh, the St Andrews area, parts of Perthshire, Cairngorm, sort of like up beside Braemar, and around Aberdeenshire. I hardly ever on the west coast, like Glasgow, Ayrshire kind of areas. And again, I can only put that down to I've priced myself out of those markets. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it just means I don't shoot there anymore.
Sure. So it wasn't like a conscious effort on your part to be
No,
like,
I used to live in Glasgow. I like Glasgow. I like getting to book Glasgow, but I just don't ever book Glasgow anymore. So I noticed I used to be in Glasgow all the time, but now I'm in Edinburgh all the time. Like I'm never in Glasgow. It's just really peculiar, like to see, because I've been doing it for over 12 years, it's just peculiar, the change in the business over time and where I'm going and places I used to go to all the time, I just don't even get inquiries for, or I'm just never at.
Yeah.
And it has made my pool of places that I shoot smaller. So like, for example, 30%, I would say 35% I could work it out, but I would, off the top of my head, I would say 35% of my business comes from one venue now.
wow. Cool.
Which is which has its benefits and has its drawbacks. I mean, that would be a big hit to me if I didn't have that anymore.
Yeah.
But it's a relationship I built over a period of time, and they recommend me as a supplier.
Yep.
And they have a very international market. Most of their weddings are people coming from North America or overseas, and or from London.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of my year. So probably, last year, probably 40 grand of my business, 40 grand of my turnover came from them.
Yeah.
And I do see it as them because every inquiry comes through, it's like venue referral.
Yeah. Would that be
and a lot of couples, a lot of photographers wouldn't like that. They'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to shoot the same venue over and over again." But there's like big like evidence to say why not? Like it can really bump your income.
I think a lot of photographers spend too much time thinking about themselves and their art and their creativity and their egos of what they want to do and what they like to do. And I mean, there's nothing to say that you can't do as good a job shooting at the same venue a lot. It's just not the way I run a business. I don't run a business based on, I mean, I don't go places I don't like to go, but the places I don't like to go are because I don't like the way that they are with the client, or I feel like it's a wedding factory, or, but yeah, I focus mostly on the success of my business and the turnover of my business and I love shooting weddings, and I'm very lucky to get to do what I love. But it wouldn't occur to me to think that I'm hard done to, that I get to go to a high-end venue, the same high-end venue 10 times a year. And I shoot 40 plus weddings a year. So yeah, it just doesn't occur to me to think that way. But you are right, Greg. That is how a lot of people would think about it and be like, oh, like. But it's the same thing with people. I mean, the thing I hear most commonly in the wedding market is, I want to shoot less weddings. Like, I want to, that seems to be everybody's goal. Want to shoot less weddings.
Except for video people. And we're like, book us more, please. Book us more.
I don't want to shoot less weddings. I want to shoot more weddings. I want to be more successful. I mean, I'm not going to be popular forever. Like, at the moment, I'm lucky and I've got a good amount of inquiries coming in, and I can be picky about where I can shoot and where I want to go and what I like to do. That won't happen forever. The markets change. Everything changes. And I don't know. I like shooting weddings. And I mean, people will be like, oh my God, 45 weddings a year, or however many I did last year, or if you do 50. That's so much. How do you have time for that? And I'm like, well, there's 365 days in the year. So I'm not down the mines or working 13-hour shifts in the NHS. I mean, I'm spending time with happy people in beautiful places. It's just not hardship, but I guess everyone's different.
Yeah. I mean, just to go over something you said there, you mentioned egos, how people think too much of themselves, and they like to do things because of their ego. What did you mean by that? Because someone out there might be listening going, Emma just used egos, but then she shoots at some of the most lavish venues in Scotland. Would that not be ego filling?
No, I don't think I do at all, because I adjust the way I am for my clients, and I hear a lot of people who are being like, that's not how a lot of people work. I'm just, it just happens to be the places I get booked, and I don't know the right way to describe it, but I don't mean it to be disrespectful to other people and their approach and how they work. And this is the beauty of being a small business owner. Do what you like. If you want to shoot in a different place and only shoot 10 weddings a year, and all of those weddings be completely different because that feeds your creativity or your artistry or your whatever, then that's fine. You do that. You do you. But that doesn't bother me. And I'm growing what I want to be the most successful business I can. And that isn't a good business model for, like, if you go to a bigger business, that's not, I mean, like, Starbucks aren't turning me away today because I was there every other day this week or every other day last week, because they're like, you should try some other coffee places. Like,
diversify your coffee. Come on.
Compare and contrast. Like, how do you even appreciate that coffee anymore? It tasted the same as it did yesterday. I don't mean it I probably sound like a dick, and I don't want to sound like a dick. Although it's hard not to sound like a dick when sometimes you sound like a dick.
That's the only reason I asked.
I think
I don't mean it in a disrespectful way to anyone, because I think if you're happy and you're doing well and you're making enough money and you are happy in what you're doing and your business is going well and your life is going well, then who cares what someone else is doing? But for me, I think to not take a wedding shooting for the types of clients I like to shoot for in a place that's beautiful and allows me to do my job very effortlessly, purely because I've shot there 5 times already this year, I think would be driven by my ego, not by a good sense of, it wouldn't be a good business decision, would it?
Yeah,
It would be your ego, or it'd be something else that would be driving that decision so I just don't make decisions on that basis.
Yeah.
And anywhere I don't shoot is not driven by ego either. It's not because I'm like, I'm not going to shoot there. I mean, if somebody wants me to shoot their wedding, I'm more than happy to shoot their wedding. The places I don't shoot is because I don't like shooting there because I don't like something about the lighting, or I just don't think I can do a good job there, or I don't like the way they are with the clients. Like, I see what they're like behind the scenes. I see how they treat the clients, and I have the benefit that I see behind the scenes in lots of places all over Scotland, and I just don't like, if I can avoid it, being in places like that.
Or if they don't feed the photographer.
Do you know what? The more I do this job, the less I care about that. So, I mean, that used to really bother me, like, if it's in my
I'm sure we've
contract,
seen Emma get angry.
We've seen that.
I'm supposed to get my dinner. Do you know what I do now? Unless it's somewhere I can't, I'm like very happy to just go off site and get something to eat myself. And then if they can explain to the client why I'm not there if they need me for something over dinner.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know. I think it's just, I'm mellowing with age. I'm significantly mellowing with age. Yeah. And also, like, I keep food in the boot of the car, and it stopped becoming something I cared about. And also, I think there's only so much wedding food you can eat as well. Like, see, by the end of the season,
oh my God,
I was like, I feel like they're doing me a favor if they don't feed me, because I can't eat any more like rich sauce-based meals.
Oh, I can eat all the rich bits. give me chicken balmoral. Give me steak and peppercorn sauce
every weekend.
Give me sticky toffee pudding. Just get it in my belly.
There's a lot of videographers that do well with working with me from that aspect, because I sometimes only eat the starter and I give my main course to the videographer. Like, so there's often a videographer that's had 2 main courses when they're working with me. They're like, really? You don't want it? And I'm like, I just can't eat another slow cooked venison, which sounds really ungrateful, but it's just, I mean, it's a lot of rich food.
Yeah, no, I get you. The last time we spoke to you, because obviously we did say you've been on the podcast before.
2021.
It was 2021, so it was a good few years ago, and we were speaking about building your business using associate shooters and second shooters. Has there been any big changes in regard to the way you operate your business now as opposed to back then?
We were coming off the back of COVID then, and I was using associate shooters more because essentially contractually when someone books you, they're booking your business. They're not booking you as an individual. So I chose to, if a client changed their wedding date and hadn't discussed it with me, or I was already booked on that date, rather than refunding them or losing the booking and the things that come with that, I filled it with an associate shooter. And I was lucky with that because I have a team of second shooters that work with me on a regular basis. Yes. So I know and trust their work, and I know that they know exactly how I shoot something and how I approach things and how I like things shot. And that comes right down to like a lot of details. So my second shooters know what focal lengths I like for certain things to be shot on. They know where I like them to be positioned for certain things happening. They know, and it's not by accident. I have a second shooter's guide that goes out to them before they second shoot for me, and they get it every time they're a second shooter. And it explains what I expect from different parts of the day, how I like crops, what sort of crops I like, what sort of crops I don't like, how it, set is for dancing, just everything and anything they have. So my second shooters know my second shooters are the closest possible person you could have to me shoot a wedding, because if they're out there shooting under my name, they know exactly how I like things done. Off the back of, like, once we got all those COVID weddings cleared, I don't have as much associate shooting going on, but I still do have it as an option. So if I really love the sound of a wedding, or if I think it's a really good fit for my brand, I will check with the people who I have an agreement with for associate shooting and see if one of them is available. And if they want to do it, I will quote the client based, or I'll explain to the client that one of my associates is available. And I have a page on my website that's specifically for that, which is like, explains to them what the process of it is, how it works. The cost is slightly different. And essentially, that's a decision for them to make at that point if they want to do that. Or, I mean, they can just find a different primary photographer if they want as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still part of the business, but it's not as significant a part of the business. And the second shooting side of the business is really important to me. I spend a lot of time training second shooters. Like, I generally wouldn't have someone come and second shoot for me unless they've shadowed one of my existing second shooters.
Yeah.
And you guys have probably worked with me at a time where there's been 3 of us at a wedding, and that's because someone, or maybe you haven't, but
Yeah.
it happens sometimes where I will have someone who is shadowing an existing experienced second shooter, and that's an opportunity for them to see what the expectations are and how I like things done. And it's also for me and they can shoot. They're shooting as well, but they're shooting without the pressure. And it's an opportunity for me to see what they got and then give them feedback on it.
Yep.
I mean, I do sometimes hear people say that they had a bad experience with a second shooter, or the quality of what they got wasn't what they needed.
Yeah, we've heard that.
But
as well.
I think it's really important that you give them really good feedback after the second shoot. I don't mean if you were in a fix and your second shooter pulls out with you, or you're saying your second shooter's sick, and someone who's one of your peers in the industry steps in for you and helps you out on a day where they could have had a Saturday off. I'm not giving them feedback. I'm not like, okay, you're, like, they did me a favor. I'm not asking, I'm not giving them 20 different bullet points back on things I think they could have done better, or where I think they should have been standing. I don't mean that. I mean, when someone is actively wanting to be a second shooter for me, wanting to learn from me, wanting to grow their business, they're at a different stage in their business than I'm at with mine. They're growing their own brands whilst they're second shooting for me. Those people get a lot of feedback not after every wedding once they've shot for me for a long time, but at the outset, they're getting a lot of feedback while I'm culling their work. So while I'm culling their work, I'm taking notes on the notes app on my phone or on my other laptop, like on my dual screens. And I'm just, so I don't forget to tell them something. So when I'm looking at their groom prep or their bridal prep or whatever it was they were covering, or their detail shots, or, whatever it is, I am taking a lot of notes so that I can feed that back to them. And the best second shooters I have are the ones who, generally I'm pretty good at picking them, but once I've told them something once, I never see it again. So if, they take it on board and they don't, and it's not that they made a mistake. Unless it is a mistake, sometimes I make mistakes sometimes. But I'm not necessarily giving them feedback on mistakes because, a mistake is a mistake. I'm giving them feedback on something where they could have done something, where something would have enhanced what they did. So like if they were at the wrong focal length, or if they put themselves in the wrong place, or like if they were doing groom prep and they've done a lot of backlit stuff with the groom, but it would have been better to maybe switch him round. Like, it's nothing wrong with backlit, but
it's an attack on me.
It's nice and it's creative, but but there's not enough balance. Like when it could have easily been flipped around and put in, like front lit for a couple of shots, or just small things that are the things that make my brand, the way that I like things done. And or just even small things like moving things, like where I now got to constantly Photoshop deodorant tins out the background of shots and stuff. It would have taken 2 minutes to move. Like just getting them to be more present and come into the room and think about the things that need to be moved, and or come into the room and make sure the overhead lights are off if that's appropriate to do. Like if it's the darkest day in December, maybe it's not appropriate to do. But if it's the middle of summer and there's a huge tungsten light above the guys when they're getting ready, that's just going to have it's not going to ruin what they've shot, but it'd be like 20-25% better if that lighting wasn't there. Like it'll just be cleaner, it'll be nicer, there won't be hues of that light. The edit will be easier, the edit will be faster for me as well. So just small things like that, so they start to, and that has a knock-on effect to their own work as well. And they know I'm always giving them feedback based on my preferences and what I like.
Yep.
But to be honest, most people don't like a tungsten light over natural light. So that's a useful thing for anyone to do when they go into a room.
Yeah. And you can always blame the videographer because I don't want to speak on behalf of every wedding videographer, but the first thing I do when I go into a room is just I go, hey guys, can I switch off the lights? And then I douse everyone in darkness. So if you're with a videographer, just be like, hey, do you want to switch off the lights? We'll always say yes. And then we can get the blame.
And then the hair person is pissed off with you because they're trying to like do something intricate in a girl with really dark brunette hair, and they're just like, now I can't see a fucking thing, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, there was a one. In fact, were you shooting that wedding at Drumtokti where I doused everyone in darkness? But they were next to huge big windows and they had huge big ring lights. I didn't think it would be a problem.
And we're still not happy.
And they said it was fine, but then when I did it, they started having a go at me, and I'm just like, look, I asked you. Do you want me to switch off? No, it's fine. I'm like, so why are you winding me up? All right, just try to do my job here. All right. Anyway, I do have
that's
one.
Also just when you're the one guy in the room and it's a bunch of women in a room and they just pick on you.
That is very true. That is very true.
But I do exactly the same thing, especially at Drumtokti as well. Like there's that big chandelier light in the middle of the room, and it's generally been on since the time the girls woke up in the morning, and it probably was dark in there or it needed the lights on, and nobody switches it off again. Yeah. And everybody always thinks we want lights on because, you know, when you turn lights off and then someone walks in and be like, oh, do you want this light on? And you're like, no, turn it on. We hate that light. And it's something to do with the lighting being bad there. It's just, we just don't want that additional lighting above everyone's heads.
Yeah.
But yeah, lights are a constant struggle, aren't they?
So I was thinking about something that...
Sorry.
That's all right. When we had our conversation with Fire and Ice last year, the year before, Christian spoke about an idea. I don't know if they were implementing, but it was that he could essentially offer a space for, I don't think it was a second shooter, but definitely a third shooter or a fourth shooter, like other members of other teams to pay him money to shoot at weddings that he had booked for educational purposes.
Like shoot with us was the thing.
I couldn't remember. Yeah. What do you think of that sort of idea? Because to me, and obviously, I mean, they're doing really, really, really high end weddings, so it's not my vibe at all. But to me, it's someone's wedding day, so I'm not going to invite more people to draw attention to themselves or to me, but again, different weddings. What's your views on that? Would you ever charge someone?
Again, I would go back to saying it's only my opinion and run your business however you want to run your business. And I'm not being disrespectful to anyone else's approach, but to me, I could and would never do that because I above all put client experience above everything, which is what I meant earlier when I was talking about my ego. My ego is way below client experience. Like I will inconvenience myself. I will change my approach, and not necessarily my approach to how I take a picture. I mean, my approach to like how I am and how I interact with someone to make the client feel as comfortable and as happy as they can. Yeah. And I just feel like it would be deeply inappropriate to be running training at someone's wedding.
I know.
And even when I have a third shooter coming along to train because I'm training someone up, I talk to the client about that, and I talk to the benefits to them about that. Like, we'll have an extra pair of hands, we'll have an extra runner. You know, if we need someone, you know, if you need something when we're out doing the shoot, if you're cold or something like that, or if something happens, or if we need an umbrella or we need this, we've got someone who can run and get that. But they know I have someone coming because they're doing training, and I'm transparent about that, and I want them to be okay about that. No one's ever said they didn't want it because there are benefits to them as well.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm clear about it. It's you know, because it's their wedding day and it's not a training exercise.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable that I was I can see how it's a good business model though, because see if you're doing high-end weddings in places that people want to gain portfolio from, you could absolutely charge someone to come and be your assistant, and because they're just being exposed to a location they wouldn't necessarily be exposed to off their own back, and the experience they're getting is worth the money they're paying as well, because they're I've trained people up who've just come out of a photography degree, and I don't have a photography degree, so I can't speak for that. But a fine art photography degree doesn't help you shoot a wedding.
Yeah,
I mean, it absolutely will give you an amazing grounding in like understanding the art side of it, and lighting, and all those things.
Yeah.
But a wedding is 50% event management and being able to interact well with people and work under pressure. Like, you could be a phenomenal photographer who was really bad at weddings. You could also be a really mediocre photographer who was really good at weddings. And going back to ego, I am under no illusions that I am the best photographer. I am not the best photographer. But you know what I am? I would say I'm very close to being the most consistent photographer I could be, because I am confident that I will do as good a job on my worst day as my best day.
Yep.
And by worst and best day, I mean, like, if I'm working in a situation where the weather is really difficult, or I am dealing with different challenges, or whatever the challenges are.
Yeah.
I am confident that the galleries I deliver week on, week out are of a consistent standard, and that's irrespective of what the weather was like or what situations were going on a personal level with the people at the wedding, or even like my personal situations. Like, I remember like shooting a wedding when I was pregnant with my youngest, and I've never had any pregnancy related, like, I've never had a day of morning sickness, so I was very, very lucky. But there was a couple of nights, or maybe like a week in total, when I was pregnant with Ottie, that I had, which I now know is called like pregnancy insomnia, where you just can't sleep. And I remember like going to shoot that wedding, and I'd had maybe an hour of sleep, and I don't do well on no sleep. Like, my husband, if the kids are up in the night, my husband always tells me to go back to bed, because he's like, he'd rather be up all night with them than have to deal with me the next day with no sleep. So he's like, no, just go to bed. Like, because I just don't deal well with no sleep.
Yeah.
I remember like going to that wedding, and I was like, this is a tough day. This is going to be a tough day because I've had no sleep. But I'll stand by that gallery. That gallery is as good as one I would have shot with a full night's sleep. The client certainly wouldn't have known. But behind the scenes, I might have been like, shit, I need a like full sugar Coke stat. I need that now, like to get some energy into me.
Yeah.
But the client would certainly not have known that I had any personal shit going on, because I put their client experience well above. And again, and you know what? And you could talk to someone else, and they'd be like, "That's a really unhealthy way to be, and maybe you should be putting your own." And maybe you should be putting yourself higher on that stack, but it's just not how it's just not my default to do that.
Yeah.
Speaking about consistency, like, I feel your style's been consistent for quite a few years, but it's also sort of evolved with the wedding industry, and it stayed relevant. So how do you balance staying consistent to your style but also staying relevant? How do you manage that?
I think there's just always a space in the market for someone who is people-centric in their photography. So my biggest focus is laughter and smiles and joy and all that good stuff that's happening. And people respond well to that. People look at that and they get something from the people who like that, that resonates with them. And there's always a space in the market for someone who is doing that and who is focused on a true to color edit as well. So what I've never done, apart from at the very beginning when I went through a matte and fade stage when I was trying to find myself like maybe 12 years ago, like those edits, like I'm not proud of. I was, so we all have to work out what works for us and what doesn't. But for the vast majority of my wedding career, my edit has been a very classic true to color edit. And by that I mean like the greens are green, the pinks are pinks. Like I'm not veering. I mean, I'm finessing what's coming out of camera, but I'm not veering massively away from the real colors that were there on the day. And by far, one of the most common things that come through when I get an inquiry form through the website is the edit and the colors. So people will talk firstly about when they look at it, they'll say, because I have a bit, it's like, why did you contact me? Or what did you like about my photography? I think it is. By far, the first thing is like the sense of, like the sense of the day shone through to me, and I don't even know those people, but like I was smiling looking at it, or just the candid nature of like the photography. And the second thing that's most common is people say the color, the colors of the images, the edit. But I mean, it's subjective. So sometimes people will say, "Oh, I really like the rustic style of your editing," and I'll be like, "Rustic? Like, we wouldn't describe it as rustic." But it doesn't matter that the word they use to describe it isn't what I would use to describe it. Yeah. It's just. I'm like, because it's subjective, and the vast majority, and also my clients don't tend to be other creatives. My clients are doctors and lawyers, and it's actually quite rare that I'm booking other creatives, so they're not always able to verbalize what it is that they verbalize it in the way that I would necessarily think was the right way to describe it. Yeah. What they like about the photography or what they like about the style. Mm-hmm. But I think what's made my business do as well as it has for as long as it has is just consistency. It's the consistent approach to how I deal with clients, the consistent approach to how I deal with suppliers, the consistent approach to how I edit and how I deliver weddings, and that to me is the most important thing. And that's not specific to the wedding industry. If you go to any successful brand anywhere in the world, like go back to Starbucks. Why are Starbucks popular? Because if you order a latte, it should look and taste the same in every Starbucks everywhere in the world. Like when you go to an independent coffee shop, some of them might, like if your coffee, a flat white's going to taste different in different coffee shops. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there isn't a consistency. Like, so that's why people will choose Starbucks over maybe a smaller independent, because they just want to know their flat white's going to taste like what they think a flat white's going to taste like. Whereas if you go to a smaller independent coffee shop, maybe it's stronger than you like, or maybe they have a more smoky, it's a more smoky roast, or it's weaker than you like, or it's this or it's that. So that's why these big brands are so successful, because people know exactly what they're going to get and they want that. So I'm not the coolest kid around. I'm not the most creative. I'm never going to be that. I'm the Starbucks of the Scottish wedding industry.
You are bloody well not the Starbucks of the Scottish wedding industry.
I think that's a compliment. I would take that as a huge compliment. You think I just did that as I'm using the coffee analogy because it's you guys, but you think I said that and I was doing myself down. I think I said that and I know. I thought that was a humble brag, to be honest. I thought you were going to call me up with a humble brag.
I mean, okay, I understand where you're coming from, obviously, with what you've just said. But to be fair, for people who like the taste of actual coffee, your actual coffee is better.
And they'll book one of the cool kids. They'll book those people. They'll book one of the cool kids photographers.
I'm saying your coffee is not Starbucks. It's Starbucks, better.
They've got
Starbucks.
Like a luxury range now, do they not? Like Starbucks,
a luxury range,
gold or something.
Do. I saw. Yeah, someone I follow was in Copenhagen, and she had like a black Starbucks cup, and they've got there's a different, I don't know where there's not one in Aberdeen anyway. But they have, I don't know, just like a sub brand, I guess, or sister brand. And it's like their higher end version.
Maybe
Anyway,
that's what
Starbucks are doing really well out of this conversation today, aren't they?
That is very true. Actually, when Greg started asking you that past question, I mentioned your reds. Now, am I right in saying that your preset that you use? Now, this was a long time ago. Listeners, I understand. This is like 2021. We had this conversation. If I'm right in remembering this, did Northern Presets Co. did they help you develop your preset?
Yeah, so I worked with them around that time to take the presets that I was using at the time, which were, I think, were Maston Labs, which I had heavily tweaked to get it the way I wanted to get it. And they worked with me to create a bespoke preset based on what I liked and what I don't like, so that I had a more consistent preset that worked with less tweaking required. And so that's what we did. And I've been using that ever since. So then that's the whole point of it. Like, it was made so that it will work across everything I do. And it still is, it gets tweaked, but it needs less. I mean, it goes on and it looks decent when it goes on. And anything I do is just elevating it and improving it.
Yeah, all right, cool. So you're still working with that preset? Just because, I know people struggle with their presets and LUTs and stuff and color grading.
They do. And I think it's also that... It's also that I think that people second guess themselves a lot as well. And you see someone else post a picture, or you see someone else share a picture, and you're like, that looks amazing. Like, maybe my blacks need to be blacker, or how are their skin tones nicer than my skin tones? And then you like get into overthinking it, and you make a little tweak to your preset, and you're like, oh, that's better. And then you shoot the next wedding, and you're like, oh shit, it looks terrible on this. So it's probably, and that comes back to consistency as well. It's probably just having the confidence, or I don't know if confidence is the right word, but it's probably just getting yourself to a place where you're like, I'm happy with this and I'm not going to mess around with it without very good reason.
Yeah.
Like,
would you say,
unless it was starting to not work on a regular basis, or there was something that I was unhappy with on a regular basis, and it was taking up a lot of my time, and I run my business in a way that it's about the most efficient use of time, then I wouldn't look to change it.
Yeah. I get the impression that whenever you're on social media, you're not getting that. In terms of editing, obviously you've mentioned you've got your consistent style, but in other things, you're not sort of looking at images and going, oh, maybe I should try this, maybe I should try that. Are you quite good at not doing that imposter syndrome thing?
I don't suffer too much from imposter syndrome. I think that I'm good at what I do, and I have a confidence in that. And I can look at other people's pictures on Instagram and like them for what they are without thinking it takes away from anything I do. And I hear this from my second shooters sometimes. Like, sometimes they'll be like, oh, like they'll just, somebody once spoke to me at dinner, and they were just saying like that, this person started out around the same time as them, and they perceive them to be more successful more quickly. And that was just making them feel really shit about themselves. And God, I didn't really know what the advice. It took me a minute to like think about what to say about that, because I just don't think that way. Like, I mean, I just like, if somebody's doing well, I think that's good, and I just don't think that way. And I think that's because of my background in business. So for I have a degree in marketing and business development, and I spent the first 10 years of my career in professional services, mostly in the legal sector, mostly in banking and corporate law. And I think that background has made me less of a in a corporate environment, everything is about the goal or what you're trying to achieve, and it's not so much about like thinking about your own feelings or like if you're looking at a competitor from a competitor analysis point of view, it's not making you sad. Like, you're not sitting there being like, oh, why is that banking team winning more clients than we're winning? Oh, I feel really bad about myself. Like, we are just not the best banking team in Scotland. Like, I wish that we could just, like, it's just not the way you approach it, because you don't have the same, and I guess why it's different for people running small business, because you have an emotional attachment to it. I just think my emotional attachment to it is less because of my background. So when I would have been in a corporate situation, like if we didn't win a bit of work, so in the same way, if a client inquires with 3 photographers, and comes back to you and say we've picked someone else, like when you are bidding for a large bit of work in the corporate world, and if you don't win it, you spend a bit of time talking to that client about why you didn't win it. And it's like an emotionless process. It's just like, and it's a normal process. Like they're expecting to be asked. It would be odd if you didn't ask. You find out, well, you do a quick meeting with them afterwards, whether it's a phone call or whatever it is. And it's just like, so where did we fall down, or where did what was not right? What was, what you're not necessarily, they're not going to tell you what they specifically liked more about the other person, because that's their intellectual property, and that's, specific to them. They're going to tell you what wasn't working for you. And I remember in the early days, whenever I would get that message back from someone, like we decided to go with another photographer, I'd be like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Who did you end up going with? And, and I wouldn't necessarily say, why did you pick them over me? But I would ask, oh, who did you pick? And they would often they'd come back and they would tell me. And I'd be like, oh, they're fantastic. You're going to have beautiful wedding pictures. And I would always come back with that. I would always be like, oh, wow, that's a great choice. You're going to have beautiful, beautiful pictures. But it was more from my point of view. I was doing that just to see who my competitors were, and I would derive my own thoughts from that, like what they'd liked, or was it a price-based decision, or was it something else, or if they were more expensive than me, was it, I would derive my own thoughts from why they might have picked that person. But I was doing what I would have done in a corporate world. I was doing a competitor analysis. I was finding out who had won the work, and I was trying to work out why.
Yeah. Would you recommend that people actually spend some time doing that?
Yeah, I don't think it does any harm. The worst that they're going to do is not come back to you. But it depends the way you do it. Like, so you've got to do it in a really positive way. It can't be like, oh, good luck then. They're gonna ruin your wedding. Like, oh my God, you picked them, they're terrible. Or not that anybody would say that, but But it might be that you are quite a light and airy editor, and they ended up picking someone that does like a dark and moody edit. So they were never really sure what they wanted in the first place, and they were, they different things. They liked different, they weren't sure what they liked, and they went with what they liked, and there's nothing you could have done about that. But maybe they picked someone else because they offer a hybrid option, or because they offer a shorter day coverage than you do, or, it could be any number of things, or just they just like that person better. They just enjoyed the conversation with them more. And I do think above all, they're like booking the person that they're going to spend the most time with on their wedding day. So maybe it's that. But there's absolutely no harm in a very positive way asking who they ended up going with, because knowledge is essentially cheesy, but knowledge is power. Like, I always want to know the most I can about any situation. Then I can do a better job. Then I can understand what's going on better and make different decisions next time if I need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that a lot in the beginning. I actually don't really do it now. I guess maybe just I don't know. It's maybe don't need to do it as much now.
Yeah.
But that's a rarer email for me to get back now. We ended up going with someone else. And I think it's just because of also where I am in the market. They're generally not going out to 10 photographers and, and getting all that information back. They are coming through referrals from the venue, or they're coming through my Instagram or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
They're not generally, well, as I can see it for the most part, I'm not a decision between 3 or 4 or 5 other photographers. They've liked the photography and they've come and got a price and they've had a conversation with me, and they're either booking me or they're not. But yeah, in the early days, I did a lot of what I would call competitor analysis.
Yeah. I think if you're positive about it as well, that's going to leave a good relationship with them. And there's that slim chance that they might say to someone, oh, we didn't book them, but they were really nice and they were great to chat to. There's that chance that you'll get another referral.
Yeah.
It's so you've got to remember they're not making a commercial decision. We're not dealing with businesses making decisions. We're dealing with people who are putting a huge emotional and financial investment into a single event in their life, their wedding days. And it's really important that everything we do is positive and that we don't bring negativity into it, in my opinion. And if someone inquires with me, and it's a venue I don't really enjoy shooting at, I would never say that was the reason that I wasn't available. Like, if I say I'm not available for their dates, I would never want to dilute their joy or make them feel like, oh, she said she didn't like shooting that. I just would never do that. I would always put it on me if someone was really. And I've had this situation before where someone wants to book me for somewhere that I genuinely don't like shooting. And I said I wasn't available, and they were like, okay, well, there's other dates. We can look at these other dates. And I was like, well, and I can't have them messing around with their wedding dates because they think it was just because. So I was like, actually, I said, I'm not very good at shooting in that venue. Just the usual jazz about being a natural light photographer, and it's quite a dark venue, and I just can't produce such good work there. And so as a result, I don't shoot there. I put it on me. I am the reason that I can't do a good job there, which is not true, but I wouldn't want to, which I guess is morally maybe not the best thing to do because I'm not telling the truth. But I wouldn't bring any negativity into that. I would rather the negative thing was about me and I can't do a good job there.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything immoral about lying. Genuinely.
Talk about pricing?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, so that people have a kind of reference, because we've obviously alluded to your client and your clients and your area of where you like to shoot and stuff, but for those interested, what is your minimum price? What's your approach to pricing? Do you show it on your website? Do you not?
I do.
Tell me everything. Tell me everything to do with pricing, how you manage travel, your packages. Go.
So my approach to pricing is that I've always tried to price at the higher end of the market, because I think the most, and this is true of, I think, most brands, whether you're in the wedding industry or not, being in the middle of the market is one of the hardest places to be. It's where you have the most competition. It's where you have a lot of price shopping. It's where it's just an incredibly challenging place to be. You're giving yourself a harder job. So if you're in the mid-market price range, it's the same with my background in law. That's a harder place to be from a building your business point of view than it is if you're at the very high end, or even if you're at the very low end. Because if you're at the very low end, you just you take on a vast amount of clients, and in our wedding world, it would be like the equivalent of shoot and burn. So it would probably be easier to exist in that lower end of the market where there's a low expectation on what you're delivering. And you basically just shoot it and give it to the client, and they're happy with that because that's what they paid for. And you would just shoot a huge volume. But you would have very little, like production time and things like that. So I've always put myself at the higher end of the market ever since I started in terms of pricing, because I wanted to attract that level of market. And also I think that the psychology of buying is that people need you to be priced around where they expect to pay for things in the market. So you will, if you want to shoot in certain places and shoot a certain type of wedding, you need to be priced in that area because they're not looking for a bargain. They're expecting things to cost around a certain level. And if you're lower than that, they'll be like, oh, that's worryingly cheap, or that's not where I expect that to be.
Yeah.
So I've always looked at the market and tried to make sure I'm like in the top 10% of pricing. And I can't always see what everyone else is charging, but just out of my knowledge of the market and what I think the average price for a Scottish wedding photographer is for a full day, that's where I've always put myself to be, so that my hourly rate is higher. And I think there's an element of being reassuringly expensive. I guess with when I'm saying this, you have to take into account, I'm assuming all things are equal. So I'm assuming that you're not charging a higher amount, but you don't have the skill level to warrant that. So assuming the skills are there and that you can deliver the product you're going to deliver, I feel like by putting your prices up higher, you give yourself an easier job because you book an easier client. In my opinion, you book an easier client to work for. So in my experience, the clients who are more affluent, who are investing more in their weddings, generally come from a background, or mine do, where they work in, like, say they're a lawyer. They are used to paying a certain amount of money for things, and they also respect someone who's charging a certain amount of money for things. They're not second guessing what you're doing. They're not being like, oh, should we go over there for pictures, or should we do this, or should we do that? They're very relaxed with you on the day. They're very easy to work for. You can build a rapport with them very easily. I just think for me, it works. I don't charge separately for travel and accommodation or any of those kind of expenses unless I'm shooting abroad, in which case it's just my normal package prices plus travel and accommodation. The reason I don't do that is because if you think about so when I in my previous life and in the degree that I did, psychology of buying was a big part of it, and why people make decisions and why they buy and why they don't buy. And you know, when you're like making a purchase on a website or you're buying something and it's the price is the price and you're happy with it or whatever it is, and then it's like, but shipping's like an extra £20, or this is an extra, it's like an extra £10 for shipping. Like there's a lot of research behind people who just leave the basket at that point and they're like, nah. Like, and it might even something that costs like, and it's actually worse if it's something that costs a lot of money, because they're like, what? I'm spending $2,000 on this, and then it's like going to be another £20 to ship it to me. They'd be like, fuck that. I'll go and find somewhere that's going to ship it to me for free. Like, they cared about that little tiny bit of money more than they cared about the big bit of money, because it just pisses them off. They're just like, no, that's not okay. Like, that's annoyed me. Like, and even though it was inconsequential to the overall total of what they were spending, the sale will be null and void at that point. So that's how I think. That's why I don't add travel and accommodation to my wedding fees. So I've worked out a price that works for me, and that's all baked into it. Because nobody likes like. It doesn't matter if you're charging $5,000 to shoot the wedding or $10,000 to shoot the wedding or whatever you're charging to shoot the wedding. Nobody likes plus £100 for my fuel. It's just an irritation and a barrier to booking that you don't need to have. Like, add £100 bloody package if that makes you feel happier. But it's just, you just don't need to add things. You just want to make, in the world of sales and selling things, you want to make it easy for someone to say yes. You want to make it easy for them to book you, which is why we all have like snazzy booking systems now where they just sign it, like they sign their signature with their finger on their phone or their iPad or with their mouse. Like, because, you know, it wasn't great in the days where they had to print something out and then scan it in and send it back and sign it. And like that wasn't, you know, that's a barrier to sales as well, because it was just a pain for them to do. We make everything easier to make the sale easier for the client, to make it an easier yes. You just want to make every yes an easier yes.
Yeah.
So adding on extra costs, I think, just annoys people. So I don't do that. And yeah, I mean, there's other things that go into, you factor into your pricing, you factor into, you know, what your cost of doing business is, all of that side of things. So you can drill down into all of that. But ultimately, are you profitable? Are you able to live off what you're doing? Are you able to shoot the amount of weddings you want to shoot so that you feel like you're getting enough work, enough variety of work? And are you able to, I mean, is your business profitable enough? Are you able to take enough money out of your business that you are able to do the things in life you want to do? Like we should be able to, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. We should be able to live the life you want to live without feeling guilty about that as well. Like, I think that a lot of times hear people say that they just can't charge beyond a certain amount. They're just like, oh, can I ask someone to pay that? Like, that's too much. Like, and it's just this figure that they've come into in their head. Like, I don't even know how they got to that figure, but they're just like, nah, it's just too much. Like, anything above, like, can't ask for more than $3,000. That's just, and it's just something that they've gotten into their heads.
Yeah.
That they think is like, that's too much to ask. Because I guarantee you, when I worked in law firms, no partner in any law firm was ever thinking, I don't want to charge £500 an hour. I don't want to charge £600 an hour.
Yeah.
It's just not how other industries think. And I do think it's, you know, I mean, I think when you're at a wedding, in our role as wedding photographers and videographers, we're with them all day. We spend the most amount of time with them that any supplier spends with them. And we should be paid accordingly for that, you know, and for the level of effort and input we have on the day. I mean, you don't want to be shooting a wedding all day and putting your heart and soul into it, and the band got paid more than you. And no beef on the band. Like, I can't play an instrument. I'm not saying that they didn't deserve what they're getting paid, but I don't want to think that they're getting paid 3 times what I'm getting paid, because I just, that would not sit well with me. But I mean, again, run your business the way you want to run your business. And I get that we get paid well compared to other jobs in other worlds, and the wedding industry is, you know, there's a lot of money swims around the wedding industry. But I don't have there's nothing that makes me feel like, oh, that's too much. I shouldn't be charged. Like, that's, you know, can't ask for that much money. Yeah. I think of it over the lifetime of a marriage. I'm like, it's not that much money. Like, it's really not. They're going to look at those pictures for a lifetime. They're going to, you know, in my living room downstairs, I have a photograph of my husband's parents on their wedding day and my parents on their wedding day. Like, I don't know how much those photographers got paid, but those pictures are still, they look amazing. Like, they're shot in a very classic style. They're both in black and white because of the time they got married. Yeah. But I mean, think about how much that pictures cost over the fullness of time. And then if my children then inherit those pictures and they display them somewhere one day, like, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah. A lot of people sort of, they have that mindset of, oh, I can't charge more than that because I couldn't afford that, so I can't do that,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And it's like, it's imposter syndrome, I guess, again, and they undervalue themselves. Have you had any like systems throughout the years to increasing your prices? Like if you say you look at the market and go, right, I'll go at the top end of it. Is that at the end of every year you reassess that and then increase it? Or is it every month you just go, right, another £200? How do you, how do people do that systematically?
I never increase it by less than £500 because I just think in the world of weddings, I mean, I just can't imagine like putting the price up by 100. I'm like, I mean, I don't think that's a very good return on my investment in going onto my website and updating it. Like, I don't think that's a good use of my time. So I would never increase them by less than 500. But, and this will go against everything I was saying, I'm not very strategic about the timings. I kind of just do it. I do it when I feel like it's the right time to do it. So I guess maybe I'm basing it on how many bookings I have and what the inquiries are coming in like and what they're feeling like and the volume of inquiries that are coming in. But I just do it when I sense is the time to do it, which is a really bad answer from anyone. Like, it's not something anyone can learn from me. But it will just be like a random Tuesday morning and I'll be like, right, those are that package is going up by 500. That was going up by 600. This is like, and then I probably won't touch it again for like 9 months to a year. And also I've adjusted it down as well. Like, again, let's come back to the psychology of buying. Like I remember at one point I had the top package and it was just a round number. Say like something sitting at $5,000. Like I moved it down to 4,900 because I just didn't think that figure was hitting well with people.
Right.
Whereas 4,900, they're like, brilliant, that's great. It's under $5,000. Like, so sometimes I'm just changing. So I'm also not afraid to like tweak it as well. Like if I've gone too high or if I've hit the market wrong or if I've hit the figure wrong, like there's a reason that cars all sell at like, you know, 29.95 or whatever the price of a car is. Like they never put them at a round figure because they know that people just look at the 995 and like round it down or whatever. I just felt like, and I think it's something to do with $5,000 as well, $5,000, because it's such a, you know, I think it would be different if it was $6,000 or it was $4,000, but it's just something with that $5,000. I just felt like that wasn't a attractive number to see, and it was putting off people who were saving to pay it, like who were like, oh, this is a lot of money. And it wouldn't have affected the ones who, I guess, money wasn't an issue. But it just didn't feel like it was hitting right. So then I changed it to 4,900 and bookings went back up.
Yeah. So
but it only made £100 of a difference, but it made a difference.
Yeah. So you're able to like do it on gut now. But back when you said that you were aiming to be at the top of the market, how did you know you were at the top of the market? Like, where did you get your research, or how were you judging that? If someone's sitting at home going, oh, where am I sitting in the market? I don't know. Did you use any resources to do that?
I didn't ever do price shopping in the sense that like I was sending people out emails pretending to be a bride and a groom when I wasn't a bride and a groom, because I don't know. I was always just like, that doesn't sit well with me, because I'm just like, everyone's trying to run a business and you're wasting their time, like making them think they've got a really good inquiry, and you're just like another photographer sitting in your pajamas, like sending out people emails. Like, it's just a shit thing to do. And also I'm always like really, I'm always paranoid that maybe like people who are wiser than me would know like how to check an IP address or something and be like, this is Emma Lawson, what a dick. So I've never done that. But there are always photographers who have prices on their websites, so I would do meta analysis that way. I would talk to people as well, like people at like in the way that someone who's at my peer level in the Scottish wedding industry was messaging me on WhatsApp yesterday, talking to me about the VAT threshold and what I thought about this, and like whether she should just go hell for leather and go above it and things like that. So by working on relationships within the industry and being open and chatting to people about things, I know what people charge based on, like, because we talk about it. And And actually, the Scottish wedding industry is quite unique in this sense. We have a lot of weddings in Scotland because we're a huge destination market. Plus, like, Scotland is just beautiful and people want to get married here who live here. And we have a really buoyant wedding market.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're good at what you do, you're not generally struggling for bookings. So I think because of that, we have good relationships with each other. So we socialize with one another. Like where I am in the north of Scotland in Aberdeen, I didn't manage to go to the Central Belt one this year, but we had our Aberdeen and Northeast photographer and videographer night out. And that's a really well attended event. And like we're all very sociable with each other and we help each other out and we chat to each other and there isn't a sense of like, I'm not going to tell you what I'm charging or I'm not going to share that information with you. And for the most part, I'm an open book to people. Like if someone wants to ask me a question or ask why I would do something, I'll always answer that. And then that comes back from them as well. So in the early days, I would have a look on people's websites and see what they were charging. I would talk to them because I'd built relationships with them and I would just have a chat about, like, I remember the first time I had an inquiry for a Sky elopement. I had no idea what's charged for Sky elopement. I had been Sky when I was a kid and stuff, but I'd never worked on Sky. And I reached out to Neil Thomas Douglas and he did a huge amount of elopement work. And I literally just asked him, I was like, what should I be charging for an elopement on Sky? And he's like, well, this is what I charge for an elopement on Sky. And I priced it based on that. So I didn't charge as much as he would have been charging because he was a much more experienced elopement photographer than I was. And he would have been a much bigger name in that world than I was. So I based my price based off what he was charging. Now that's not like a strategic way to run a business, but if you have those relationships and you have worked on your relationships, and I've said lots of things are important, but client experience is right up there. Relationship building is right up there. When I worked in law firms, that's what I was working with the lawyers and on is understanding the importance of client relationships. Because if you're a lawyer, one banking lawyer is going to do a similar job to another banking lawyer. You know, the law doesn't change. There's only so much creativity you can have within that. They're booking the person. They're being like, I want to use this person from this law firm because I really liked working with them, or we went out for some drinks after the last deal was finished and they were such a good laugh, or they listen more than they talk and they listen to what the issue is and I just like working with that person. And that's what all relationship building comes down to. Like, you're not friends with someone who only is interested in themselves and never asks you how you're doing. So in your personal life, the people you build rapport with and you develop friendships with, it's never a one-sided thing. And if it is a one-sided thing, it usually isn't a friendship that lasts. And that's how it works with suppliers and building relationships and your fellow photographers and having a genuine interest in them and a genuine interest in their well-being and how they're doing, and it not just being about what you can get from them, and what you can. And so like if that had been Neil's sense for me that like he'd never heard of me before, never spoken to me before, and we had no rapport with one another, and I'd messaged him out of the blue to ask what he charges for Sky elopement, he probably would have ignored it or not replied to me.
Yeah.
And rightly so. Like that's his, that's privileged information. And you don't share it with everyone.
Yeah.
So the relationships you build are really important, and building genuine relationships and really, like when I'm talking about the venues that recommend me, I think about what I can do for them. I'm not just thinking about them referring me. Like, I spoke to one recently and they'd asked a photographer for use of an image, and there'd been like some back and forth about, well, if you put me on your recommended suppliers list or I'll charge you this much for the picture. And it was just the wrong way of going about it, because it was just like, well, just that first point of contact. I mean, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I would have just given them that image and I'd have been like, yeah, absolutely, here you go, use it. You know, like I would have been like, great, they're out marketing for me. Like, go, have at it. Like, please credit me for that picture. I just think using it as a tool to be like, you can have the image if you add me to your recommended suppliers list and punt me out to your clients, or it costs this much. It's just not the right way to start a dialogue with someone, and it just doesn't make them like you or want to. Yeah, I just think sometimes it's a short-sighted way of running a business. It is a short-sighted way of running a business. It's not a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
What about venues that do that?
Yeah, what about the flip where would you ever pay a venue to be on their suppliers list? Because there's some venues that do that, isn't there?
No.
Yeah.
There is. And also that's the type of venues I don't want to shoot at. So, you know, when I was saying about venues I don't like to shoot at, it's not because because I think they're not up to my standard, or because I'm like, oh, I'm not shooting at that place. Sometimes it's really high-end places, or sometimes it's a really nice place. But I'm like, well, I have no respect for them and what they do, because I know they're making recommendations to clients about the most important, one of the biggest investments they're going to make in a single day in their life. In fact, they're never going to invest more money in that in one single day. And they're recommending suppliers based on who paid them to go on a list. So they don't really care. They don't have a strong sense of doing the best thing for that client. They're not like, I've worked with this photographer or I've worked with this florist for years and I know that, like, come hell or high water, they will deliver for you. They're just recommending people based on who wanted to pay to be on their list. And the people who want to pay to be on their list are 9 times out of 10, I don't think, the best people. Because if they were the best people, they wouldn't want to pay to be on the list. So when I'm talking about places I don't like to shoot, it's situations like that, because I don't want to shoot in places where I just think it's their one wedding day. They should be the most important thing to everyone who's involved, and it just doesn't sit well with me. Like, I'm all for, like, have a successful business, make the money while you can make the money, but not at the expense of someone's wedding.
Yeah. This might be a little bit of a spicy topic, but would you ever shoot a Trump Turnberry?
I haven't shot a Trump Turnberry since it was Trump Turnberry. Last time I shot a Turnberry, it was before it was Trump Turnberry. Oh God, that's a shitty question.
I know. Sorry.
Thanks for that. Anything else you want to chat about? Do you want to chat about any conflicts going on in the world and my views on those?
Look,
it wouldn't be my top choice. But I also don't think. I think the people who are running Trump Turnberry and the people who work there have very little to do with the politics of the owner of Trump Turnberry. But I don't know, actually it's a very good question, because as I was saying, I don't get a lot of inquiries for Ayrshire anymore. Trump Turnberry is not to do with price, I don't suppose. I think a lot of the clients that I book would be put off by it, so maybe that's why I don't get inquiries from it.
Quite possibly.
Oh, that was a shitty question.
I know.
You shoot there, though, right? I've seen you shoot there since it's been Trump Turnberry, so it's not an issue for you guys.
We have shot there once since it turned Trump Turnberry. I got into a lot of trouble for flying my drone when Trump's son was apparently around. But
so they're worried you were trying to take him out, take out the next generation of leadership.
Just a couple of police fans at the door looking for us.
But I'm not going to shoot Trump Turnberry again. I haven't told Greg that. By the way, he's probably
like, fuck, I just booked one for you yesterday.
Sorry, mate.
Sorry. You can shoot it. I don't know. They made a post on social media, and I'm just like, oh.
Did they?
Oh, they did. So I'm so excited to have. Yeah, no, I I mean, hey, if you're shooting it, there's no judgment if you're wanting to shoot there. Not a problem. Like you said, do you?
I have no judgment. I agree. I have no judgment over. I mean, everybody's got. Well, I presume everyone's got a mortgage to pay. Everyone's got stuff to that they need to, like, you know. I've got kids. They're bloody expensive.
They are bloody expensive.
I mean,
not just your kids, but kids in general.
Yeah. Oh, one of them's away to do a trial for gymnastics tomorrow, and it's like a gym membership. Like, oh no, it's more than a gym membership. It's gonna like the amount that that's gonna cost.
Yeah.
The amount that's gonna cost every month. And like, I hope she doesn't like it. I'm like. It's a 2-hour trial, so I hope they really put her through her paces and she doesn't like it. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it, mummy. And I'll be like, brilliant.
Yeah.
You don't, that sounds shit. Don't do it.
It's like my kids do swimming and they're just like, I want to like not do swimming. And like, you're doing swimming because everything else costs so much fucking money. We're having 3 kids and you're like trying to send them here. You're looking at your schedule going, I physically can't be in all those places at one time. It's just maddening.
I'm lucky. You'll think this is funny that I'm going to say I'm lucky because of this. I'm lucky. My eldest is autistic and he has no interest in like groups and do it like, you know, things he has to pay for. It's a nice experience being his parent because you see like my youngest is very neurotypical. So She's a wonderful child, but she's like most children. She's like, what's the next thing we're doing? Where's the next thing we're going? What's the next thing we're buying? You know, like she's just, she's just looking out for the opportunity. She's like, can we get a new toy today? Can we do this? Can we go here? Can we do that?
Yep.
And my autistic oldest has none of that. I mean, you could walk around a toy shop for an hour and unless there's something that really sparks joy in his heart, that kid will walk out with that toy. He never wants it's so hard to buy gifts for him. He rarely wants anything. He just likes what he likes and he just derives joy from the most simplest things. And so he doesn't cost me anything. So she can do a few more things because of him. She doesn't really appreciate that yet, that she gets the surplus, but he doesn't want to do any of these things. So that's kind of lucky on my part.
Yeah. Much like my Greg here. My Greg, he's not bothered about the classes and stuff. I don't need to send him out to many places. Very, very simple. Very, very simple.
My camera's gone out of focus because I've moved around too much. I'm trying to fix it.
Oh, for God's sake.
I can't even go to the supermarket without going down the toy aisle for like an hour with Dexter.
I thought you meant for yourself.
Oh yeah, me. I gotta see all those Paw Patrol toys. And like, if I don't go down the toy aisle, there's tears. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
Kids these days.
That's what Ottilie's like. She's just always, you know, she looks for her opportunities. She'll be like, just in any situation. So like, she has dancing tonight, and there's like this vending machine outside dancing, and you put £1 in, and there's like all the different sweet. Like it's just like it's like one of those things where it's got little tubs of sweeties.
Oh yeah.
Like she's just always looking for it. Like it's just. She doesn't need the sweets at home, but like she wants those sweets. She wants, it's the act of putting the £1 in the machine and twirling it around and picking the sweets she wants. It's the whole thing. Goes back to the buying experience. Like it's the what do they call it? It's like the dopamine or the, you know, whatever it is you get, you know, because you purchase something. She has that in spades, and that's a normal thing for humans to have, and especially for children to have.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, look at, do you remember like when you used to go to like zoos or museums, like if there's a box that says donate, you're probably going to walk past the box if you have a child. But if you have one of those circular things that make the coins spin and you watch it for a little bit,
yeah.
I mean, kids can be putting in pounds all day long just to watch it go round and round. Fascinating.
Yep.
Make the buying experience more pleasurable.
Yeah,
how can we add a spinning thing to our
business? Could we incorporate that into our business?
I mean, maybe it's just like a digital version, like tip for your photographer. You make a tip, and it's just a visual video that plays right and it goes round, and bloop. Thank you. I mean, I kind of want to try. I want to try and I want to add that for that. Sorry, Emma.
I was thinking, no, I was thinking about like how I take payments, and I take payments in 3 stages. Like I take a booking fee, and then 6 months before their wedding, they pay half the balance, and then 6 weeks before, they pay the remaining balance. And I think I think people enjoy that process. Like feel like they're paying less because they're not paying. You know, when they pay, you know, especially if you're charging at the higher end of the market, if you're taking a booking fee, which is a relatively small figure within the scope of the whole invoice, they then have this huge payment to make, this big balloon payment to make near the end. I don't know. I feel like they feel like they're paying less. But actually what they're doing is improving my cash flow. The reason I do that is so that I have an even cash flow all year round. Like a lot of photographers have a lot of money coming, or videographers have a lot of money coming in throughout the summer months and not a lot of money coming in through the winter months. Whereas when you take a 6-month increment payment, if you think about your January and February and March, you have huge payments coming in for your summer weddings.
Yeah.
But basically what you do is you create even cash flow all year round. So I more or less have month to month the same amount of money coming in. Like on average, I have the same cash flow coming in January as I do in July.
This might seem like a mad thought, right? But it kind of in the same lines as steadying out your cash flow. You see, when you go to a coffee shop, the little jar that says tips or whatever, and you see there are tipping cultures especially in the States. But and over here we have a service charge. Does anyone implement a tipping kind of system in their business? I know it's nowhere near standard at all. It's. I mean, this is a wild idea. To go, hey, if you liked our service, send us a tip. Do people do that? And I mean, I know they don't, but why don't we? Why don't we ask?
The North American clients, as you're saying, do anyway. So like often they will tip you at the end of the wedding, or they'll send you something afterwards, or so they often will, but that's because that's part of their culture. And if you're a photographer in the States, you do get tipped usually at the end of the wedding. I don't know. I think generally you tip for things that are at the lower end of spending. So like you tip for a coffee, or you tip for, you know, like if you go out for lunch and things like that. Whereas if you're trying to be seen as at a different level, like, you know, in the level of spending that they're spending on our services, I think it's just less appropriate to expect or to instigate looking for a tip.
Yeah, and I suppose I should probably clarify it. If people are thinking monetary tip, I actually just mean how many of us go and ask for a Google review, say, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally acceptable. My assistant asks my clients to do that for me. I think actually there's something to be said for having an assistant do things as well, like, because it's less of a.
Do you mean Greg?
I think I wasn't.
Do you mean Greg?
No. Is Greg your assistant?
Is he not your assistant? Is he not your VA?
Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. I don't know.
Am I supposed to say that? I'm probably not. Sorry.
I think someone who has that role within your business can ask for different things than you can ask for. I mean, you can ask for it as well, but it comes over in a different way. So when my assistant is asking at the end of, like, when the clients receive their pictures, or when they, like, at whatever stage they're asking for, they can ask for it in a different way than I can ask for it. They can say, it's really useful for other clients when they are inquiring with Emma and when they're looking at Emma's work to see what previous clients thought of working with her. Would you be able to fill in this? Would you be able to do a Google review for her? Same with, like, I don't do it as much now, but like when your assistant reaches out to to the blogs and be like, oh, Emma shot a wedding and I think it's going to be perfect for your blog. It just has a different feel than like you saying, hey, I think this is like really good work that I shot. Like your assistant can ask in a different way.
Yeah.
And I am very keen on outsourcing things that someone else is better at doing than I am. So I do all my own culling and all my own editing because I don't think anyone would do that faster than me. I'm a fast culler and a fast editor. And I don't think anyone would do it faster than me, but I also don't think anyone would do it with the care and love and attention that I would do it as well. Like I know that client, I know I spent all day with them and I had a very close one-on-one relationship with them all day. And I just feel like I have the best sense on what images they would like and what they wouldn't like, or if they had any particular hang-ups about anything or just things I could probably tell an editor. Like I had a groom recently with a tiny little scar, which he had to point out to me because I could not see it, but it bothered him. And he was like, if possible, can we not photograph that like from that angle? Or like, I was like, it's okay if I just Photoshop it out. And I will always ask someone like I wouldn't Photoshop out a scar or something without someone's permission, because it implies that I think that it shouldn't be there, or it's unattractive, or that like if they're good with that, I'm happy. Like it's not bothering me. But if it's something that they don't want in, I would take it out. But does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wonder. Going back to that idea of like getting Google reviews, would someone ever? I'm talking directly to listeners here. Would you consider giving something in exchange for a Google review? For example,
I see this like. That people put on their Instagram stories like, I'm gonna do a giveaway, and if you leave me a Google review, I'll give you £100 print credit to your gallery or something like this.
It just feels like why would you need to? If you've had a good relationship and done a good job, why do you need to offer incentive?
Because it takes time out of their busy schedule. Like
I don't know.
Because the exchange has been made. Like, I've given you money, you've given me what I wanted. It's been a great service. So I'm just going to say, but to go and ask someone to spend their time and actually do, like, it's, it takes time to write a review unless you're going to
I personally wouldn't, because I think it looks a bit desperate and
I don't mean publicly.
I don't like the way it looks, and I don't like the way that it implies that my business requires that, or something's not right, or like I need you to do this for me. So I always want to like I always want people to perceive the strengths of my business and what's going well, and positivity and not negativity. So I personally wouldn't, because it doesn't sit well with me in terms of like, I'm just like, oh, I don't like the way that looks. Equally, I don't like it when I find it really uncomfortable when I see photographers on their Instagram story being like, oh my God, I need a second shooter to cover this wedding. And I'm like, oh my God, I would never put that on my Instagram stories. Because from that client's point of view, I'm just like, so we're just looking for, it just implies you don't have your shit together. Like if there isn't a way for you to find someone to cover that wedding without putting on Instagram stories for any random to apply for that job, would imply to me, from a client point of view, that things are really not going very well. Like, as in, like, how is there not a pool of people that you can speak to or that you can interact with of Instagram stories or something so public like that? That just, it makes me cringe, because I'm just like, oh, I don't think that's a good look.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Lots of people do it. I see it. Like, I see people do it, and I'm not, and again, like, I'm only ever saying things that I feel are correct or right. Like,
sure,
if it works for you, but I just wouldn't want my clients to think that I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the right outward facing communication to me.
Yeah. I agree.
You want your clients to see you like a duck in a pond, where you're all beautiful up top and then just paddling away at the bottom going, got to make this work.
Yeah.
that how it works?
Yeah, exactly. I just, yeah, it just doesn't sit well with me. But I see it enough. Like I see it enough to like when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting choice.
Well, there's the
Yeah.
title of your Thrive Talk. Be the Starduck. Get it? It's like Starbuck, but duck because of that. Sorry, terrible.
Wait, do you want to show and tell?
Let's
Or
go
have
to
you
show
anything
and
else you want to ask?
Well, yeah, let's go to show and tell, and then we'll pester Emma more. Emma, you can see the
Oh,
screen,
no.
yes?
I can see the screen.
Wonderful. Now, these might just be images
These are some
without a
random
story.
pictures of mine that you've.
Pretty much. Actually, but before we start, yeah. So every now and then, for a podcast guest, we will ask for a couple of photos just so we can use on thumbnails for our social media and stuff. Emma sent over 600. Like how? I think it was. I actually can't
Do
remember.
you know what that was doing?
Hundreds and hundreds.
I was outsourcing the job to you. So I have a Dropbox file that has,
Clever.
I'm not joking.
No,
I have
no,
a
it's
Dropbox
great.
file which has portfolio in it.
Yep.
If anybody asks me for a portfolio for anything, as in like if I,
656.
like for example, when I'm talking at Thrive, or if somebody wants some pictures to use for something,
Yeah.
I'm like, here you go. These are pictures that I stand by and I like. You pick what you want to pick.
How
So I'm
regularly?
basically saving myself time because if I had to sit, say you said send me 5 pictures, that would take me a long time to pick 5 pictures that I was like, these represent me perfectly, and I, that's a really hard task for me to do. That's something I would really struggle with doing.
Okay.
So I just take that away from me, and I just give you 600 pictures and tell you to have at it and pick whatever you want.
How regularly do you update that folder? Like, do you go into it often and delete some old ones? And
It was updated about 3 weeks ago. So so generally I'm adding to it, but I'm also taking away. So if it's something I'm starting to be like, oh, that looks a bit, that was quite a while ago, or I mean, just that picture doesn't resonate as well with me anymore, or whatever it might be. But it does get updated.
Cool.
And the way that I populate it is, this is useful to anyone.
Yeah.
I use Pixie Set, and every now and again, and I have a gallery on my Pixie Set called Portfolio, and it's broken down into weddings, elopements, the different types of photography I do. And I will go through a gallery when I'm completed, and I will pick out some highlights by just clicking on them. And then I will copy those over to the Portfolio gallery, and they just live in there. So when someone like Lisa from Thrive says, I need some portfolio for Thrive, I just have it there and it's ready to go. And it's not like I'm picking the pictures that resonate most with me, or the pictures that I most enjoy, or the ones that I think tell my story the best. So it's unlikely that whether that's got 50 pictures in it or 1,000, I'm not going to hate them overnight. So I'm not going to be like, oh, that doesn't represent me well. I don't know what's going on with the light in here. I'm going to think. I'm not going to hate them overnight. I'm not going to, just like there are pictures I shot 10 years ago that I stand by today and would use as a bit of portfolio. Like there's some of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. And it's not always like the wedding I shot last week. It's not always. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Anyway, let's go on to show and tell. First image. The reason I liked it is because it incorporates so much of the environment. And obviously, if we're going to talk about, we mentioned this kind of for preps and stuff, the whole big window thing. Find a big window, people, and just put your couple next to it. That's all you really need. But
cheat code.
It's very much a cheat code, but I like how you've obviously got that side light, and obviously they're looking out to the light, so that kind of nice coverage on the face. There are indoor lights, but they're not, because you're so close to the window, they're not overtaking the scene at all.
No.
But you've also got these kind of leading lines, which are very nice. And then just that little bit of splash of color right in the middle at the back with that kind of floral painting, I think. But the kind of pinks and the reds and the greens are very subtly tied in with the bouquet that's on the sofa. Obviously, that's environmental. I'm assuming when you took that photograph, that didn't occur to you. Maybe it did. But tell me a little bit about this image, please, Emma, if you can remember.
This is a lovely couple from the South in America. So they are very typical of my client base. They are here eloping in Edinburgh. They've come over from the United States, just the two of them. They are in Gleneagles Townhouse. This is the private bar at the top of Gleneagles Townhouse. So this is if you're a member or if you're staying in the hotel. So it's exclusive and it feels that way, and everything feels very luxurious, and everything's very well considered. So nothing's by accident in there. They've had expensive interior designers in making that space what it is. And yeah, I just always want to have couples close together in spaces that feels maybe cozy is not the right word, but like I like that they're like at the end of that couch, and I like what you're saying about, you know, like the leading lines and things like that. It's intentional that her bouquet is placed like that at that angle. I've put it there. It's intentional the way her legs are crossed towards him. I've told her to do that. It's intentional they've got the glasses in their hands. Like they were having, I will get them to have a drink. Like I will get them to like, cause we're celebrating. That was just after their first look. So we're celebrating. They're about to go hike up Arthur's Seat and have their ceremony up there. So they're not yet married.
Ah, nice.
But like, so this is a celebratory drink and like just a moment to like take everything in before they go to get married. But like, I feel like everybody is more comfortable when they have something to do with their hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a double whammy. Like the champagne is celebratory, but it also gives them something to do with those hands. And they are, if you know this space, they're just looking out over the Edinburgh skyline there. So there's a series of images in this, you know, they're looking at each other, they're interacting with each other, they're drinking their champagne, because that's the way I shoot. I'm shoot in a really photojournalistic style. So I never have a set idea in my mind when I have a location that I like so I like that spot and I like the lighting and I liked the environment around them. But I don't know what the good picture from that's going to be until I'm in the situation with them. So there's a series of images where they're interacting more, where they're looking at each other, where they're laughing. But like at that point, they were just looking out the window, looking at the view. I also used, if you look up, there's mirrors above them. So from that series of images, I then shot up the way so that I'm shooting their reflection, like when they were like having a kiss or just looking at each other or chatting to each other. So the other thing I'm always trying to do is get lots of variety from one setup. So it's not just like, right, we've got this picture and move on to here. Like I want to get as much as I can from each location. So there'll be a whole series of images just from there. And yeah, I just love that location. Like I love the carpet and the couch and you know, I love how much stuff is going on. I mean, it's a good location. I always see things that like I don't always see things, but sometimes I see things that I'm like, I would have preferred if that had been like I might have moved that lamp that's behind her head, so it's right next to the other, like that's annoying me a bit now. And sometimes I see stuff like that in the moment, and sometimes I don't. Like sometimes I'll shoot a few frames and then I'll move something slightly, and I'm not afraid to move things. Like I always think it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, and I'll often move things even in high end locations like that. Like I'll just be like, I'll just do it. Like I don't, you know, I'm respectful when I'm touching things, but I mean, it's not. It's now I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I wish I'd moved that over a bit so you can see, so it wasn't. Anyway.
Well, I kind of like the fact that the lamp is there. I was looking at this earlier, and I was thinking, the lamp on the right, I would maybe move, but then it would be too much negative space. Yeah. But the lamp kind of, because of the lines here, because of this line, you create a kind of like you create a little arc around their head. So actually, the lamp there is not offensive to me. But I was going to mention the fact that you have that reflection image as well, because I was it was either this or that
The reflection
abstract
one.
reflection,
Yeah, right.
because as everyone knows, I like smoke in mirrors, a backlight. I'm the happiest I could ever be.
You're just looking for everything you can get from one location, because that would have been a missed opportunity not to get that upward reflection.
Yeah.
Because it's just, but then again, I can see why you didn't pick it, because it's a beautiful image, the upward reflection, and it's kind of got that kind of like blur to it, and it's really,
nice.
it's really lovely. But I don't think it's such a strong standalone image as that one is.
Yeah. I agreed. And that's exactly.
It suits seeing it with that image, or seeing it like if it was an Instagram post, or if it was on my website as portfolio, as in like as a blog about that wedding. Like it sits nicely with it, but it's not such a strong, it's not a standalone strong image as that one is.
Yeah, agreed. It would be the type of image that I would use to hint at a scene before showing the actual striking shot of them together. You know, I'd want to build up with like abstract shots of this scene, and you're like, oh, what am I looking at? And then you show people what you want them to see. Anyway, this next one, the black and white image. Can you see this all right?
I can. I can tell from the ones you're picking, you like a bougie elopement, Simon.
Mm-hmm. I do like a bougie elopement. I do.
And he likes a drink as well.
And I do like a drink. Yes. In fact,
she's got a whiskey. It's a whiskey.
Did the other ones have drinks in their hands? I can't remember.
Yeah.
So again,
it's because I like things in people's hands. Like, they don't have to think about what to do with their hands.
And you've kind of done the same sort of thing. She's not crossing her leg, but she is sitting at an angle where her legs aren't like flopping down in a very lazy manner. There's definitely intentional.
It's just aesthetically pleasing, isn't it?
Yes. This I can see. It's Fife Arms, right? Fife Arms Hotel. Yeah.
You're drawn to the luxury environment, Simon.
I am. I'm a bougie bitch. But I like this because she's got a very simple dress, this kind of simple off-the-shoulder satin dress, but everything around her is just so... It's busy. It's a busy image, and the simplicity comes from her posture, what she's wearing. It just, that kind of juxtaposition again with, and you've got this top of the frame that's kind of cutting a line through, which is kind of mirroring the line of the desk. Again, it's leading lines towards her, and it's like you're following that shape, and then it's perfectly illuminating her face and her shoulders perfectly. Just think it was a really simple, nice image. And obviously, you don't have control of the dress or the environment that you're going to be shooting a couple in. Well, to a degree, but it all just comes together here.
Yeah.
Maybe you do have control. You do have some control of where you shoot couples on a wedding.
For a shot like this,
For a shot like this.
You could have chose to do that anywhere.
But I wouldn't necessarily have put a bride in a lace dress there in that situation. She is wearing a silk Vivienne Westwood gown.
Yeah.
And the way light hits that fabric, because it's so simple, because the silk is so exquisite.
Yeah.
Light hits that in the most beautiful way. So that's partially why she's like that. If she'd been wearing a really embellished silk dress, embellished lace dress, that wouldn't have looked anything like that there, because that kind of just absorbs the light. And there's nothing wrong. Lace is beautiful in its own right, but I wouldn't have photographed that in that way. Like, that's not how I would show off lace.
Yeah.
So part of that image is about showing off that dress, which is a piece of art on its own. So that dress will have been, she went to London to have that dress made for her, to have the whole experience with the Vivienne Westwood team. And the dress is such a big part of that. And this one of the reasons that elopements are, like, they were just themselves. They're just the two of them. This is post-ceremony, so we'd been outside for some pictures, and we went back up to their room, to do some I think we went back up to the room to get something, but then I wanted to do some pictures in their room, and that's actually this is in November. That's the last little bit of light of the day coming through the window as well. Like the sun was just going down.
Yeah.
So that's not like that was just the last bit of light that she's in.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just the way the sun goes down there that it works really nicely. But I purposely gave her they were having a drink anyway, but like I purposely had her hold that glass. And I like that she's holding, because we're at the Fife. I like that she's holding like a chunky whiskey glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like the elegant champagne flute from the Gleneagles townhouse. You know, and to be honest, there wasn't an elegant champagne flute in the room. The Fife Arms has complimentary whiskey carafes in the room, and we just poured it from the, you know, it's the cut glass crystal that she's drinking it from. It's. I just wanted her to like sit up on that desk and get a nice angle on that light and really show off that gorgeous dress and her beautiful profile. And she has really a beautiful bone structure as well. So like I'm always, I mean, this is obvious, but like I'm always flattering women, like in the sense that like, you know, it's not any particular body type but everybody photographs differently. And I'm always trying to look for what works best for them.
Yeah. You don't want to remove that power socket though in the back? Look at that. I'm just
I
kidding.
can't see that because of this.
I'm sitting 3 feet
I
from
can't
it
see
and I
that on
can't see
this,
it.
but they don't have these are preview images, so they don't have their final gallery yet, so I will remove their power socket for them.
I can't even see it here. Like,
I mean, look, if it's on your 600 photographs that you're super proud of, I mean, maybe you need to... No, I'm just kidding, by the way.
so I think this is the same couple as before.
That's the same couple as before, so this is up on
It
Arthur's
is.
seat.
So
I really like this image too. There's something, and I don't know specific. This is one I can't talk to as easily. I don't know what I like about it. I just like it.
well, I'll tell you what I like about it. I mean, obviously it's black and white, so that's kind of cool. Which you don't see a lot of black and white like out where there's a lot of greenery in an elopement kind of setting. You don't see a lot of black and white, and it kind of this image does lend itself to this, but primarily because of this. The path that they're on, it kind of sweeps the right and then left, and then there's this like you can follow the path. In fact, I don't even know if the path actually continues, but up the hill there's these lines of light and shadow that make this kind of bend, almost like a river, and it kind of continues up, and it kind of curves around the top, and that is kind of what I like about it. And they're walking up.
They're on a journey.
It's a really satisfying image from a photographer or a videographer's point of view, isn't it? It's just,
it is.
They just they had just been married at this point. We are leaving Arthur's seat. This is them. This is them walking away as a married couple, and there's it's just. Yeah, you're right. It's the path. It's the.
But if I was to add deep meaning to shit, which I love to do, Emma,
I know you do.
even though deep meaning isn't always intended, like what does that image say about what marriage is? It's a winding path.
Their windy path journey.
Through sharp bushes sometimes, and maybe you'll hit light spots, and maybe you'll end up in the shrub. It's never a straight line, is marriage.
And they're doing it hand in hand, and
there you go. Beautiful.
Looking towards her a little bit in that one. I can't see.
I mean, his head is turned. I think he's looking towards the view.
Yeah, he's not quite looking back yet, but he's looking round. Yeah.
But you're right, deep meaning. He's always
and
looking
the way
at
that
his
the
wife.
breeze has caught her dress as well is enjoyable.
Yes.
From my point of view to look at.
I agree. Just a very nice, pleasing image. This would be one I would really definitely print. I would definitely print this large and put it in my house for sure.
You would see when you look. I doubt you looked through all the 600 pictures, but
I did.
You will see that not a lot of those pictures are pictures of the back of people's heads, because most of my pictures, I would say 90% of the pictures that I show are people laughing and smiling and interacting with each other. So that shows you how much I like that picture as well, because there's not a lot of pictures out of the back of people's heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is very
on that
true.
note,
On that note,
this last one.
This last one, complete carnage.
This is much more classic Emma Lawson.
Yeah, absolute carnage. I like how close the couple are. I would say that they're. I mean, how do you define perfectly framed? But they're sitting at the kind of off to the sides. There's a lot of space above them, but then that shows the confetti with the petals anyway. You can see smiles and people, but it's in the background. There's a soft focus. There's a lot of action. And that's why I like it. And again, the light as well. I don't know if you're running with a flash here because it's in a barn.
Not a flash, but I get what you're seeing. So this was a rainy wedding at Daldorf.
Daldorf, okay.
This was a rainy wedding at Daldorf. And they wanted to do confetti, but it was too rainy. So we went over to that, the barn that's, it's such a long time since this is an old picture, by the way.
I was going to say, because there's not, I mean, there's not that many barn weddings in your list.
Because it's just everything's evolved, I guess, changed.
Yeah.
So it was a rainy wedding. I don't even know if that particular barn is still like that now, but that was open to one side. And it was set up for their drinks reception so that people could be undercover.
Yeah.
And so when they had this said, they got married inside in the classic space there, where you have dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I, at that time, hadn't wanted to do indoor confetti in that space because it was really dark and I would have had to flash it. So I was like, let's go over to where the drink reception is going to be and do it over there. Mm-hmm. And this was a really special confetti throw anyway, because all those flowers, I think it was the groom's family, all those flowers had been grown and dried from the groom's parents' garden.
Oh, I like that.
So they're really special. That's why they're so big as well. Because you see flower confetti is usually really small.
Yeah.
These have been lovingly dried from his parents' garden.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Or maybe it was her parents, but this must be 7 years ago. That's why, and also there was they must have had a huge garden, a lot of roses, because they had so much confetti. This was a huge confetti throw. And as you can see, one of his groomsmen at the end has got the basket and is just ditching it right over their head, what was left.
Yeah.
So that's also why he is laughing like that as well, because it's just funny. He was they've walked the whole, this is the very end of the confetti line as well. So this is right at the end. They've done the whole walk from that back corner of the barn towards the light. That's why you thought it was flashed, is because the dark and light.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it that I can see people happy, smiley faces in the background. And,
I think that basket makes it, because it gives, we all know people are throwing confetti, but it gives it a reason for confetti being there, and that is the carnage, because you can see that basket.
Yeah, and how close it is.
I just love the joy on his face. His face is why I'm a wedding photographer. That's what I love about, this is what I love about weddings. That just it's just why I do it. And that's why this image that's maybe 7 years old is still in that portfolio file.
Yeah.
Because
has to be.
I'll never not like a picture like that's just.
Yeah. This is my favorite photograph of all the 650
really?
Zen. Yeah. This is my favorite because there's confetti tunnels. They're not spontaneous events. They are set up and staged.
No.
And I've seen so many of them, but it's only at the end where couples get really close to the photographer or to us that things tend to go awry a little bit.
And that's exactly what was happening there, because you can.
And I love that
they have gotten to the edge of the barn, and that's why the light is so. That's why his face is lit so beautifully like that.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere else for them to go. They wouldn't have come out into the rain. So me and the second shooter would have been out in the rain, probably shooting by this point.
Yeah.
And it's just it's the end of the road, and it's just you're right. It's just a chaotic bit at the end where it's no more space to go.
Yeah. But I like how there's usually at the end of confetti tunnels, people tend to okay, it's a tunnel, but they tend to kind of go further away at the
Yeah.
ends of the tunnel, and you're left with all the space. But I'm
Yeah.
guessing because they don't want to step outside, like you can see all these people behind them, and they're really close, and that basket's
Yeah.
really close, and they're really close. And I just love the fact that every person in this image, even though they're out of focus, has got a smile on the face. It's absolute carnage. I just think it's a great image.
Yeah.
And it should never leave your profile. Thus
It won't.
speaketh Simon.
So, Thrive.
Thrive Edinburgh 2025. Ems, what you're going to be talking about and why the fuck should people listen to it? To you.
Okay.
To you.
So
No, to
I,
it. That sounds
To it.
rude.
I'm trying to find my I was trying to find my oh, I just switched you off.
How dare you?
We're still here.
Gone. But I can't see you anymore.
That's fine.
That's
okay.
fine. Just as well. Just as well.
Do you mean you've not
Is
memorized
this
your
like when
talk?
people say you can edit this bit out, right?
Oh, no, we don't edit.
Oh,
I
we
got you
don't.
back, I got you back.
Well, we don't edit except for Tasmin.
Except when someone switches off their screen. My talk at Thrive is very much on the business side of how to thrive as a wedding photographer and how to have career longevity. So it is around the stuff around building relationships, running a consistent business, the tools for doing that. So a little bit of touching upon like the stuff I use, the software I use, the ways in which I achieve that. But mostly my approach to the business side of things and how to have just a long and enduring career as a wedding photographer, because I mean, lots of people come into the industry and they don't stay long, or they'll burn themselves out because they're not charging enough and they're shooting too many weddings, and maybe that's not a bad thing for them. Maybe they go off and do something that they like even better. But if it's the case that you love doing this job, and I love being a wedding photographer, and you want to keep doing it, and it's really a talk around how to have a long and enduring career.
Very
And
awesome.
does that cover it?
Yeah, can give our listeners one tip that they can take away if they, for some mad reason, cannot buy their tickets to Thrive in Edinburgh. Give them one tip that
For
will
how
help
to have
them.
a long and enduring career.
Yeah.
Well, let's focus on relationships. So one thing you could be doing after, say you do it at the end of the year, or you do it at the end of a wedding edit. If there is a venue that you really enjoy shooting at and that you would like to shoot more at, or you would like to try and build your relationship with so that you can potentially be on their recommended suppliers, or that you can, you could just be there more. I would highly suggest you go through everything you've shot there in that year and you create a gallery just for them, which is very detail orientated, which is very venue specific. And also when you're shooting, if you can shoot with the venue in mind, that's a good idea as well. So if you can shoot so you've got images that will be useful for them as well. But I mean, specifically create a gallery at the end of the year. Like, so somewhere like Drumtopty, where I am a lot, I could go through and create a gallery for them and give them all the detail shots I've set up of ceremonies that year. Give them all the detail shots of dinners setups I've shot there that year. Yes, give them a few images that are couple specific. So like the couple in the environment of the venue, when it's couples who've given permission for it to be shared, but more focus on the things that are specific to that show off their venue really well.
Yeah.
And then send that to them and say, hey, I really loved working with you last year. Here is a gallery of some of the like standout moments. I think, some of the standout portfolio style shots for you from last year, and have it all split into those areas for them. So it's really easy for them to use. So it's when they're doing Instagram posts, or when they're putting together their brochure for 26, 27, or when they're doing anything like that, they've just got this really easy place to draw on for like, let's show what a ceremony in this room looks like.
Yeah.
Let's show what our ballroom ceremony looks like. Let's show what our outdoor ceremony looks like. They've already got it all in one place. And then you have ingratiated yourself to them and you've made their life easier. but also they're out marketing on your behalf as well.
They are.
And
yeah.
this maybe comes over as a really calculated thing to do, but ultimately what's the core of it is taking some time out of your day to do something that will make their life easier, which ultimately will help you too. But it's such an easy win. Do that and even if you only shot somewhere once last year, even if it was like the first time you were there somewhere, just make sure, like, you probably sent them the gallery at the time, and if you didn't, you missed a trick. But just at the end of the year or the beginning of the following year, when they've got time to look at things, like maybe got lost, or maybe they didn't get a chance to look at it because they're doing 100 weddings a year and they're busy. But in January, when things are quieter, do that again for them. Just create a gallery for them that's like some really nice shots from the ceremony space, or just some like flat lay stuff that they might like, or some stuff that they can easily share on their socials, or that they can use for their wedding brochure or whatever it is.
Yep.
And just put yourself at the top of their inbox, and you've done something for them that probably nobody else did. And it's just a quick win. It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Just a quick thought. Would you
had
call?
in mind?
Yeah, perfect. What would you call those files? Because having just gotten an SEO person on our team, when you're putting together a blog, you're always naming it something relevant.
Well, she's talking about a gallery, like a pixie set gallery.
Yeah, but those file names still, like if you were to download one of the image, you still have a file name.
Well, yeah, but
yeah,
doesn't matter.
Would you name it?
I would have
Emma Lawson Drum Talk Day. Or would you?
Yeah. So in the past, when I've done it, I've named it like I put my name, so Emma Lawson Photography, because that's what I'm trying to put in the forefront of their mind.
Yeah.
But you're right. There probably is some scope that you could. I mean, we're not in control of the alt text they're going to put on it, but I mean, you could make suggestions for things like that as well. You could. I mean, if you really, really wanted to be very helpful and to make sure that everything led back to you, when you're sending this to them and asking them to backlink to your website and things, you could also suggest some alt text them for as well. Like, if you really wanted to, be helpful and also make sure that it works for you as well, you could do those things. And I just say doing more proactive acts like that doesn't take that much time from your day.
Yeah.
But it will have a big impact.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So if anybody wants more nuggets like that, come to Thrive.
I mean, that was a pretty good nugget.
Before we go,
I know, and just think Lisa will be like, that was
the whole
I'm
thing.
Be in trouble. She'd be like, oh,
nah.
You don't need to speak at Thrive anymore.
You've got way more than
that. That was your best
Gav.
one.
Yeah, we know you've got way more hidden under your sleeves.
Final question though: do you have any book recommendations for our listeners?
I mostly listen to audiobooks because I am editing all the time, or I'm traveling all the time, so I travel a lot. I really like the audiobook of The Midnight Library.
The Midnight Library.
Wait a minute, I'll go into my audiobooks.
Is this a fiction one, or?
It's a fiction one, and it's a brilliant audiobook. It's really, really good. Highly recommend.
By Matt Haig.
Yep.
The Midnight Library.
Somewhere.
It's a bestseller, so people will have, some people will have heard of it.
You can get it on hardcover, $14.85 on hardcover if you're interested. £9 for paperback, and Audible for £8. There you go. But support your local bookshops.
Yeah.
So you're not one of these book talk.
I read one recently called The Ministry of Time, which is not my usual vibe in terms of what I listen to. Like, I listen to a lot of crime and stuff like that, but I really enjoyed it. It is an excellent one for audiobook again. I think it was the author's first book. It's by
Killian Bradley.
And it's just a really unusual book. Like, it's not like any book I've read or listened to before. Like, it was very unique take on fiction. And I mean, it's a really good one. Like, I thrive no pun intended,
Hey.
on having good audiobooks to
Yep.
listen to while I edit. And actually, it's really interesting. I re-listened to an audiobook recently because there was another book in the series coming out, and it had been so long since I'd listened to the one before. I re-listened to it, and I could right away remember the wedding I had been editing. Like the book made me think of the wedding I was editing while I was listening to it. Like when certain things would happen in the book, I could just remember like their visions of their wedding kept coming into my head all the time.
Key characters become the couple to you.
Not quite, but it is really peculiar. Like it's just weird. Like it's like that just gets stuck in my head. Like the book I'm listening to and the pictures that are in front of my eyes just become one, I guess. But yeah, I am pretty eclectic. I listen to a lot of different types of audiobooks. I really like there's a crime series that I started listening to because they were on offer on Apple Books, and I loved them. And the author is Anthony Horowitz, and it's just a detective series. There's like 5 or 6 in the series, and he's writing more, so I'm like dying for the rest to come out. But yeah, I love it when I find a new series and I'm like, see, if you like the first one and you're like, oh my god, there's 6 more to listen to, that's like my life made for a month. Like but then sometimes an audiobook I'll be done with. If it's like a 12-hour audiobook, that's like one edit and it's like it's over too soon.
Yeah, that's very true.
I could talk to you for a whole podcast just about books, because I'm going through maybe like 60 or 70 a year.
6 or 7.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a non-fiction guy. I'm always just like businessy other kind of books. So most of the recommendations, I'm like, meh.
And you see, that doesn't interest me at all. Like, see, the ones that are like about business or self-help or any of that, like, or spirituality, like those don't interest me at all. Like, I like a story, and I like like a mystery, or I'm very, very fiction orientated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Greg needs all the help he can get, so
Greg doesn't need any help.
And for anyone out there who's into book talk, there's so many great smutty books out there. I have to say, there's a lot of great smut out there. It's great.
Yeah, like fairy porn.
Fairy porn, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I just listened to Onyx Storm, which just came out on the 21st of January. So it's the 3rd in a series. That was the book that I was saying I'd listened to them such a long time ago, like a year ago.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I needed to like refresh what happened before I listened to the 3rd one in the series. And those books are really long. So I think it's like a 23-hour audiobook or something. And I finished it in like 2 days. And I was just like, oh, what am I going to do now? Like, I'm going to have to wait another year. And they always end in a cliffhanger. And they're like and they're kind of like dragons, and and people have special abilities and things like that, and they're very popular. They're all over Instagram at the moment, people talking about them because it's such a big book series. But it's just like, now I'm gonna have to wait like another year. It's just so frustrating. What are these authors doing?
Was the Onyx Storm not the one that was really confusing to a lot of people?
Well,
I think it's one of those ones where it has a map in it, and you're like, oh, looking at the map.
I didn't find it confusing, but
it's okay if you did.
I don't think
I haven't read it.
I don't think I'm too. I don't know if I'm that deep. I think I take things at face value, and so I think I'll see like when there's like a big book comes out like that, and people talking about their theories and things like that. It just never occurs. Like I just accept it for what it is.
Oh yeah,
and take it in. Like I'm not trying to like second guess it or try and work out what the next twist or turn is going to be. I just enjoy it for what it is, which I think is why I go through so many of them and why I enjoy them. Because like when I watch something on TV with my husband, he's always like worked out who the murderer is, like halfway through the series, or he's like worked out what the twist or turn's going to be. And I was like, oh, that must be like so unenjoyable. Like, just why have you got to try and like I just.
It's almost like a game, though.
I just let the story unfold in its own time, in its own way, and It's only if it's a book. I mean, a book's got to be really bad and really obvious before I've worked it out, before the author wants to tell me. Like, if I've worked it out before what the twist or turn is, then it's not a great, it's not been done well, because...
Yeah, I mean, I get you. I always think back to, like, Inception, that last shot of the little spinning thing. Oh, it wobbled,
or Sopranos.
and then it cuts.
Yeah.
Oh, Sopranos, yeah.
Oh, there's a book. There's a book that's got a really good twist at the end. Behind Her Eyes, I think it's called. They made it into a Netflix show. I think.
Okay.
Don't watch the Netflix. Just read the book. Well, I mean, you could watch the Netflix, but we'll read the book first. It's Behind Her Eyes, and it's got a fucking brilliant twist at the end. Like, and nobody sees it coming.
Oh,
but what if we're now going in expecting a twist, though? You've told us.
Well, I've ruined it, I suppose.
Spoiler alert! There's a twist.
You won't be able to get it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think most people who have read that book are just like, because there is twists and turns in it, and you think you've worked it out, and then you absolutely have not worked it out.
Ooh. So what you're saying is your husband couldn't.
Do you always
couldn't
ask
get the
people
end?
about the books?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
We do.
Oh.
We must have asked you 4 years ago?
2001?
Maybe.
Interesting
I
to see
don't
what you said then.
recall.
2001? That sounds so long ago. My God. Anyway.
Oh, I should have looked through my book list and looked at what my most highbrow books are, so I could have
Highbrow?
come over.
Please, I want lowbrow. Anyway.
Well, I don't have any highbrow ones because they're all like crappy fiction and like.
All right, okay.
Or fairy porn, so.
Yeah.
But I could have like made up some highbrow ones.
If you
The Ministry of Time is my most highbrow one because it's actually quite clever and history orientated. So if you're looking for something that's more complex than fairy porn, I guess that one.
On the plus side, Book Talk on TikTok is wonderfully funny.
Book Talk.
Yeah, Book Talk.
Do you know I don't really go on TikTok? I'm old.
I mean, it's wild out there. It's wild. It's great. I think on one of the last episodes of the podcast, I said it was being banned. That's because we recorded it on the day it was banned. I mean, it was.
Who knows?
Then lifted. It's back now. I mean,
do you know?
hell.
I think that was an absolute own goal by the outgoing American administration because they just they literally. I couldn't have set that up better for Trump to come in and just be Mr. Popular. And be like, you know what? TikTok's great. I'm bringing it back. Those bastards who got rid of it, like, what assholes? Like, they could not have created a more... it was just the easiest thing for them to be like, we'll work out a way. We'll get an American to invest in it. It'll be fine. Yeah. TikTok's great. Like, I mean... Since you brought up Trump earlier, that couldn't have been. That couldn't. It's such a big own goal.
I mean, I would. Yeah, I mean, maybe they needed a high point because now. I mean, I don't want to get too political on this. This is not the podcast for this, but Jesus, it's going to shit, everyone.
Social media, though.
Social media.
Where can people find you online?
No, well,
apart from not TikTok.
But I am on TikTok, but I don't post anything, so don't go there.
Now I want to see.
Instagram. I'm old school. That's where the millennials are. Instagram. Where else? Where else are people? Not on Facebook. Well, I am on Facebook, but nothing gets. I mean, unless it gets carry over from Instagram. But I mean, Instagram, Greg. I'm old, and there's no other way.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Where are you, Greg? Where are the cool kids?
I'm not on anywhere. Well, I am, but
I mean,
I don't post anywhere. Cinemate, I barely post as well.
I did give Greg the job of managing the social media stuff, but then he didn't bother, and so I tried to do it. But I'm terrible at it. It doesn't come naturally to me. I don't like filming myself. I'm not
talking about social media at farm really, because there's people who are vastly better at that than me and who are experts at that.
Yeah.
So I'm really specific about the things I'm going to talk about because I only want to talk about things where I think that I actually can add real value to people. And telling them that now and again, like when I feel like I post on Instagram, like I do treat it as a job, and I don't neglect it as such, but it's very mood driven. It's very like, oh, I'm going to post that on Instagram, or this will be like, it's not strategic, and it should be. And there are people who are very good at being very strategic on there, and that's something I'd be really interested in hearing about.
I think you're right. I think it needs to be a strategy. Because I quite often leave it to the, when do I feel like posting? The problem is I never feel like posting. So it never gets done unless there's like, I'm working on a wedding and I've created something different or whatever.
Well, quite often when I post is because I'm editing a wedding and I'll come across a picture and it'll, like I posted something the other day and it was just like a really cute shot of the couple doing their hand fasting, and the person who was marrying them was crying because she was a friend, and the bride was about to, like, she was feeling emotional and the groom was crying. And it was just, I don't know if it was even in their previews. I just think it was just like an image I came across when I was doing the edit. And I was just like, oh, this is just like so cute. Everyone is reacting perfectly at the perfect time. And then I'll just post that as a single image because I'm just like, oh. But it's just because I've got like a strong desire to share that, because I'm just like, this is blooming adorable. This is so nice. So that's not strategy.
No, it's not.
That's just
but if you have any social media questions for Emma, I'm sure she would love to answer them live at Thrive. Anyway,
maybe save up that question for someone who'd be better answering it, but you can ask me boring business questions. I'll answer those.
More educational but less entertaining is what you'll get.
So this was my thing for Fry, because when Lisa asked me, I was like, yeah, I'll absolutely do it, but it has to be something that I feel like I can really add value to, and something that I think that I can really, like, people can walk away with something that they can use and do. And I feel like for me, because of my background in business, that is the business side of running a business, which is obviously really obvious, but it's not I'm not the person to talk about, the art side of it, or there are other people who can talk in a more compelling way and a more inspiring way about composition, or about having a really interesting journey, or about, just like the art of it and that side of things. Like that's not something I can add value on, because I love what I get to do, but that's just not something that I can bring to the table. But I do think I can bring the business development side and marketing side to the table, and just how to have a business that will pay well, and that you can have and that you can enjoy your life, like, which is your slogan. And I didn't really mean to say that, but I just meant
you did.
You can't enjoy your life if the business you're trying to run is taking up all your time, and you're not making enough money, and you're worried like how much money it's going to make this month, or if you don't book another wedding, if you're going to be, how your finances are going to be coping, or if inquiries are falling off a cliff, or if, whatever it is, like that's, you're not enjoying your life because the business is starting to take over your life. And I think I have a good work-life balance, and some people would say I have a terrible work-life balance because I do something of work every day. But I think I'm really lucky. I think I'm so lucky that when Miles is in the bath at night, there are times like I'll go in and, like, he's older, but because he's autistic, having a bath is like a really key part of his routine every night. So he could never not have a bath. Like, if you don't have a bath, you're not going to bed. And he will spend an hour in the bath. He would spend an hour and a half in the bath if I let him. So you see, like, after I've made sure he's brushed his teeth and he's washed his hair and stuff, my office is just along the hall from the bath he uses. I'll go and come through and write some emails, or I will call something, or I will do some stuff. And I guess from other people's point of view, maybe that doesn't sound like good work-life balance, but for me, it's like I think that's an absolute luxury, because he doesn't want me in there with him all the time. I can hear him splashing around. I can hear what he's doing. I know he's safe. I know he's happy. but like I can maximize that time, like time where I would just be like sitting at the top of the landing, or he doesn't want me in there with him all the time, so it's not like I'm neglecting him. But I'm just like, that's such a luxury of my life that I can do 45 minutes of work while he's like soaking the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the way, who has baths shorter than an hour? Is this normal?
Oh my god,
I'm like 2 hours.
The only time I have a bath is if I'm staying in a hotel and I get into it and I'm in it for like 3 to 5 minutes because
what?
I think I like the idea of a bath. I think I want a bath. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have a bath. This is a nice hotel. I'm gonna have a bath. I run the bath. I get into the bath and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, what do you do now? Like, okay,
you listen to you light a few candles. You listen to your audiobooks. What? What
My
are you
audiobook
talking
is
about?
not enjoyable in the bath because I'm not at ease in the bath. I don't enjoy, that's not relaxing to me. I am not a bath person. I cannot understand how anyone, it has to be so hot that it's almost too hot.
It's going to be scalding.
And it's only that hot for like the first 3 to 5 minutes in my experience.
Well, then you run it again. And then you turn it off. And then you wait 10 minutes and you run again.
That's not relaxing. You're constantly adjusting the temperature. How's that relaxing?
You need to get like a sous vide for the bath.
You need to
don't
get
enjoy the bath.
What do you need to get?
A sous vide.
What the fuck's a sous vide?
You cook the stuff in the hot water and it keeps it at a certain temperature.
Oh.
You are so fancy, Greg.
I don't have one.
I need to get a sous vide for my long epic baths.
Sous vide.
Oh, sous vide. Oh, so sorry.
You're basically cooking food in a warm bath.
Yeah. Cook yourself in the bath.
I mean, that's essentially what a bath is, right? It's just a human
but it
soup.
keeps it at the same temperature.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Much like Cold Stones for whiskey. This ending of the podcast has gone off the rails and into the bathtub. Anyway, people can find us at perspectivebycinemate.com. Our Instagram is at perspectivebycinemate. If you haven't already done so, prepare yourself for the amazing Thrive in Edinburgh on the 4th and 5th of March at the Yotel Imagine X. Yotel. I want to say Yotel every time. It's Yotel, like hotel, but with a Y. But I want to say Yotel. So if I say Yotel, it's just for my own goddamn enjoyment, people. Okay, it's more fun. You know,
say it with a really strong Scottish accent.
If you want a strong Scottish accent, you don't come to me, who watches too much Netflix shows. Anyway, prepare yourself for the 2-day All-Star Photography conference, taught by 6 phenomenal mentors. Well, taught by 5 phenomenal mentors. And then Emma...
You're so mean to each other.
I'm so sorry. It's the Scottish humor.
And one mediocre at best mentor. Thanks.
Emma, we love you. You know that. If you have loved this conversation, which I hope you have, please do subscribe to wherever you can subscribe to, follow us, and engage on our social medias at wherever we have social medias. Perspective by Cinemate. Our YouTube is at Perspective by Cinemate. Everything is at Perspective by Cinemate. It's so easy. You can even Google it if you're that lazy, or ask ChatGPT. I'm sure it'll send you in the right direction. Anyway, we hope to see you in the next one. However,
in the meantime,
enjoy your Thrive.